Hello, people. It's me. This is they all call him Peter because they speak English here, but I'm gonna assume his name is Peter.
It's better, yes.
Peter. Ah, okay.
Very nice.
Furch, right?
Furch.
Furch.
Czech language.
Furch.
Actually, Czech pronunciation is Furch.
More rolled R and then CH. Furch. Ah, I can't even say it. But to our English-speaking friends, it's not fuck. No, it's not Furch. Furch. It's, what is it?
Furch.
Furch.
Furch is the right thing.
Oh yeah, why? I'm German and I can't fucking say it. Okay, but it's a beautiful name, and it's in a beautiful guitar company in a beautiful country. And I came here to spec out my own Rainbow Series guitar, which is there completely custom. Anything goes. You can do this with a configurator online. But we're going to get to that in a separate video because I decided that, well, if I'm here anyway to talk about tone woods and my special guitar that they can build for me, we might as well... this is all lies, by the way. We might as well talk about the company. No, of course I'm here to talk about the company. I'm at a guitar factory. Of course I'm going to do guitar factory video tour. And we're not going to mix the two videos together as we planned originally. We're going to talk about all the stuff that I saw today already. We've only filmed half of it because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And before I talk to the man who actually can talk about it, because who started the company? Your dad?
Yeah, it was my dad, yes.
Okay, because his dad started the company. I need to talk about this. And something you might not know, that your employee, Martin, hey Martin, he's not here, so I can say this, is one of the most thorough marketing influencer guys I've ever worked with. Communication with email, flawless, A+. And then you want to have a meeting with him, and then he sends you a Google thing, and you pick a date, and then just like the communication is on a level where I, as someone who half his days spends communicating with influencer marketing people, have rarely run into someone like that. And then he will plan out this shoot meticulously with points, and don't forget to say this, I am zero prepared. I drove to, please tell me how to say this. It's not is it Czech Republic? Or you guys just say Czech? I'm so confused about what country I'm in.
We still call it Czech Republic, but technically it changed the name to Czechia.
Czechia. See, that's one I've never used.
We cannot get used to it either, so don't worry about it.
I was at my dentist on Monday, and I said, I'm going to Czechia.
Okay.
And then he said, no, it's Czechian in German. So in German,
okay,
the German words for the country are different, and we don't know which ones to use. And now there's, so Czechia.
Officially Czechia. Yes.
Czechia with K, not Czechia. It's not a CH.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be probably a different country.
Maybe at this point, pick a completely different name for the country, like name it Frank, and everyone just knows exactly what it is. So I drove to Frank. Okay, I don't know. No, that's just too close to France. Where were we? Oh, something about a guitar company. Yeah, I drove to Brünn or Bruno, or how you say that?
Brno.
It's not so easy. And then you've got half an hour through a beautiful countryside, and then you're in this tiny, tiny village, and we're in an old mill. Is that correct?
Yeah. That used to be a mill house, actually, and a mill complex here.
So when you come to a guitar factory, and this is what this is, because when I found out how many guitars you build yearly and how many people work here, you think of factory. You don't think of small shop. You don't think of the Luther in his little, room. So it's 75 people work here?
Yeah. Altogether, we are probably about like a 90 employees altogether in a factory, just working on guitars with the hand. It would be right now about 65 people.
So it's not a small operation anymore. And if I get it correctly, how many guitars do you do yearly?
Current capacity would be, it always varies, what kind of model, difficulty, let's say, how complicated model we are making, and a mix of that models. But it, with current capacity, it can range from, let's say, 7,500 up to 9,000 guitars, depends on the mix
So
of the models.
that's the term is shit ton of acoustic guitars. And when I think of Guitar Factory, that's kind of a negative word even for guitars, because you want to have that idea of someone with an apron and the wooden tools in their hands and doing things by hand. You want love and craftsmanship, and the word factory kind of goes against that. And we're going to go into how they do things here, because it's a beautiful amalgam and mixture and hybrid of modern production methods and people doing things lovingly by hand. I've seen it. It's not this guy saying it, this guy saying it. And it's not because they're paying me, even though they're paying me. Just to let you guys know, yeah, idiots. It's true. Come on, I gotta eat. So the word factory is kind of weird. It just describes it's a little bit bigger and there's a method to everything. But when you think of a guitar factory, you think of the American strip mall building, big metal frame building, everything in one big room with partitions. And what I love here is it's an old mill. It's like you go in, and 3 times now I ended up in a place where I was like, how in the world did we get here? And I'm good at navigation. Like the building turns you around.
It's a complicated premise there.
But I like that every room you're in is so small. They're not tiny, but they're small enough to make you feel you're still in that beautiful wood-smelling workshop of a luthier. You know what I mean? So even though not everything is happening in the same room, but it just feels like you're in a place where luthiers work in their little cubbyhole rooms. And I like the charm, the atmosphere of the place.
That's true. It's like that, really, because it's a old mill house, storage for the grain and everything. So it's the rooms are kind of like a tiny, but it also comes with the challenges, because when we want to use some technology for guitar production, then we usually have a little bit of the Tetris, how to fit it all together.
I was just going to say, how do you get the robots in here? Because there's robots at work. And I just said to Martin at lunch, I said, wait a second, we went up and down stairs the whole time, but how do get batches of guitars get from one place to the other? Because I counted 4 different levels that I walked up and down on with heavy cameras. And then he said, no, there's an elevator and they get on these carts. So there has to be, to get numbers, you have to have a production flow and process. You have to be efficient.
Exactly. Flow is very important. So you have to be very effective with the space.
So it would be easier to be in a big building on one level.
It would be much easier, yes.
But then maybe for the people working here, it would feel like I go to a factory job. And I mean, look, every job at every given point in time is probably going to be a job. Even this job, trust me, today, I thought I had time. I had to get up at 6:30 to be here at 8, because for some reason we started filming at 8. I thought I have a YouTube job where, I can sleep in. Fuck no. And since then, I've been carrying around cameras and tripods and stuff. So it turned into a job. But the people doing their jobs here, I very much noticed that they take a lot of pride in it. The lady doing the inlays on the rosette, and I was filming it, and I had a nice shot of it. She said, no, I want to do a really nice one. And because she was just doing one with, I think, black binding, very, very simple.
Yeah.
And then she started, she said, no, I want to show you something else. And she was doing like a wooden inlay. And it really feels that everyone is, even though it is repetitive work, because the same guy doing the painting isn't going to do a binding the next day. Doesn't make sense, right?
We try to train people to do different stuff, but of course it's not... binding, you mentioned binding. It takes 6 months to learn how to do binding. So of course it's very difficult to teach that.
But it really feels like everyone's taking great pride in the job. And when I buy an instrument, I want to know that the people doing it are we're talking about America now, treated well, have health insurance and blah, 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 and all that stuff, but also doing it with passion, because you can not just see passion in your instrument, you can hear it, you can feel it. You can feel when an instrument was made by someone who just, was there for the money.
I think it's also that, if you imagine you would be a worker in the factory like ours, it's really like a production from the beginning, from say drying the wood up to the point where you're stringing instrument and sending it out. So you basically, if you would be working on a binding, then you actually see that guitars are coming from that point to that point, and they are coming out of the factory finished, and you can just walk a couple of stairs up and see really like a finished product which you've been working on it with your own hands. And I think that really helps to kind of like it for every person to feel important, because everybody is important in our company,
and everyone is part of the team, and the final guitar is a team effort. But let's go back, because I got something here. Wait, does it say something about
Martin's schedule? Let's go back to Martin's schedule.
History. You don't have to tell me to talk about history, Martin. Come on, I'm a professional. Really not. Look at the shirt. History. So your dad started the company when this was still not the freest country in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
It was communism time, so it was not democracy, even though like these days in some countries they call it democracy, but it is not. Some countries still happening. But anyway, it was the same thing here in like a Soviet Union kind of like countries back then. So you couldn't. My father just wanted to make a guitar for himself, basically. That was the beginning. Since there was not really any competition, you could not get a guitar, for example, from United States. It was very difficult to import the guitar back then. So he said, okay, I will build one for myself. And friends said, okay, can you build me one as well? And that's how we collected first orders. But technically, it was not possible. It was very illegal to do it this way, that you build something and sell it for money and get the money. That's in a communism is a no-go zone. And
what a weird concept of us to think about. We grew up in a world where that is how you make money. You build something, you sell it, and the simple act of you build something, you're good at it, and you sell it, that's illegal. It's just so weird.
I was born in a communism time. I'm year 84, so I was actually 5 years old when the Velvet Revolution happened. So I just remember very little, and just basically like children memories are from that time. But of course, we've been talking about the stories from the past with my father. What difficulties there was. Imagine that you living in a country where there is basically this communism suppressive regime happening, and then you from one day to another become a free country, employing democratic principles, free trade, and so on. But there is absolutely no knowledge how to actually run a business. That was probably a very big challenge for my father.
Well, this doesn't happen.
Start a company, but how do I do it?
The problem, you can't just go from, okay, you come in this country with all these rules and then all of a sudden not. This is not something you do overnight. Of course, these things happen overnight, but it takes a long time. To just, find your way. But I mean, the thing is, it clearly worked out for you guys.
Well, it was my father's job. He really had to basically just intuitively make it happen. Of course, we had advantages that the labor cost was much lower in Czech Republic back then, in 90s, so it's not like that anymore. But actually my father had to learn how to run company, how to do economics, how to do accounting. Actually, simple things like these days, marketing, how to do marketing, for example.
He had to learn distribution chains, everything.
Exactly. Yes.
He probably did not speak English.
My father was and still is not as great in English. So
how do you break into English-speaking markets? But let's stay there for a while. What you said about labor cost. See, completely unprepared. These videos can go anywhere. But I know that we over there see. Oh, that's the Czech. No.
Let's call it Frank. That's okay.
Why can't I? Okay, so the people living in Frank, we know that in Frank, God, this is so dumb. Can't believe you remember that. That we get sometimes guitars from here, like Maybach, for example, the Fame guitars made in the same factory, because labor cost here is cheaper. That's what I always thought. However, my impression of driving into the country is that it feels I'm going to say standard of living is probably wrong, but I see not a country where people make less money. I see the same big cars. I was yesterday in the Bryn Mall here in one, which is literally one of the nicest, cleanest, high-end malls I've ever been to. We don't have shit like this in Germany. The roads are cleaner, which clearly has nothing to do with, money, but it's just, it feels like I'm in a very, very nice, very well-kept country where people do well for themselves. So why is it in my head that this is where we get guitars made because it's cheaper? Is labor cost cheaper than in Germany?
Yeah. But it should be.
But how? People seem to have a good living, good life here.
I think it's just that we would be probably like about like a EU average somewhere. Germany would be probably higher than that, but in the end of the day, maybe cost of living is a little bit less than in Germany. I would say like real estate prices would be cheaper, and then in Germany.
Yeah, if you spend a bit less on your apartment and house, then that's all that it needs. These people put me up in a hotel that is so fancy that I've never stayed in a place like that. And then I looked it up, and because I was like, why we have to change this place because I'm not worthy. And then I was very surprised at the nightly rate. But it is a very fancy place, let me tell you. Okay, I felt completely out of place there. So yeah, again, it just felt like, how can you make less money here because you have very nice things, let's put it this way, and you make very nice guitars. And of course, people in this country here in Frank also need to be able to afford said guitars. But I mean, your guitars do start at 13 something, right?
Oh, really? Actually, Violet series would start just below 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it goes up to whatever you want, depending on how many diamonds you want in the headstock.
Yeah, Swarovski.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want, that's possible.
Not really. I like in our guitars. I always with every step up in a range and with a price. I always looking for like a really added value. I'm not so much a fan of like just exclusivity for no added value for that, just for sake of exclusivity. So basically every step up there is like an improvement in materials, improvements in aesthetic features, and at some point always you have a step in some sort of like a construction thing which is improving the sound, or let's say something. There always is something which when you're stepping up with the range.
And in the highest range, which is the Rainbow series, because they're all colors. Did you get that so far? And then Rainbow, anything in the rainbow is possible. It's very clever. That's just all custom, and you can pick whatever you want. But you could also possibly, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, pick the wrong shit, because you're like, oh, that looks nice, and then you have a guitar that looks super nice, and then to no fault on their end, it doesn't sound great because you just put together the wrong kind of materials, because that can happen. That's a different video. What you just said, there needs to be added value. This is a problem for some companies where they have beautiful guitars. I'm going to take Pia as an example. Sorry, Paul. Beautiful guitars, beautiful range, and they're like $5,000, let's say, plus whatever comes after that. But let's say 5,000, and that is absolutely amazing. And then you want to have a lower range, but you make them nice, and they are good guitars, and you could absolutely be happy with a guitar for, let's say, 3,000. But the problem is that then is competition for their 5,000 euro guitars, they will cheapen them deliberately. So, now technically at $3,000 we could put in abalone, but we don't. We put in plastic just to make the point that these are cheaper. And we put them in a cheap gig bag just to make the point that these are cheaper. And on the back we have the cavity covers, electrics. We don't countersink them. We don't sink them in. We put them right smack on the guitar. Wouldn't cost us a thing to do it, but we do it to make the point that's our cheaper range. I have a problem with that. I think the problem comes from starting at the high-end range, and then you have to find reasons why these guitars are cheaper. But if you work your way up and you add value, well, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. But it depends where your company is currently standing and what you want to achieve. So there are definitely multiple ways how to get there. For us, I guess, I still have the rule, and that's how we got to the point in the conversation. I really need some sort of added value, and definitely I don't go under certain limits which I set for myself what I want the Furch to be. So that's why Violet series, let me put it this way, I would love to have guitar for 600 euro. It would be great. I always think about how to make it happen, but it still must be Furch. It must have the values like the acoustic performance. It has to be the quality of the production, the build quality. And I just didn't find so far the way how to make all these things together and make the guitar, for example, for 600 euro. I was trying to do that. I'm basically trying every day in our engineering to do that. But this is so far, that's what we got right now, is the best performance we got.
So let's get into what makes a Furch guitar a Furch guitar. I get it, Martin. I'm getting to it. That's why he took all these amazing shots. But we're going to get into the individual things that make the guitar a guitar. But if you wanted to go into a, below 1,000 barrier, would these special things that make your guitars, not necessarily the tuning of the, we'll explain, of the top, but for example, that metal thing in the neck, things like this, the paint, if you could get these elements done, but not here, but done in Asia somewhere, under your guidance, and then you could do a 499 guitar that had the elements that make Furch what Furch is, but it's made by someone else. Would that be an option?
Well, not very much. If we want to make a same guitar, let's talk about Violet series, right? So Violet series, let's say 1,000 euro retail price. If we would make whole guitar somewhere else where basically just the labor cost is cheaper, then we would end up in probably like maybe 10%, 15% lower price. That's not enough, because the problem is that the guitar is complicated. In order to get it to work as Furch, so the voicing and all of the material choices, the bracing patterns, how to fit it together, there are some points which needs to be fitted in like a very, very like a tight or a precise tolerances. Some things are easier in that, some things are very difficult, and you are looking into just 0.02 millimeters tolerance. And so in order to do that, it doesn't matter if you have if there is some sort of like a cheaper country to build it in, or so, it doesn't help you very much. You need to achieve that precision, and that's just costly as it is.
And I've seen a lot of steps where a company potentially would have to get special machines. I mean, I saw a lot of machines where I asked, like, how do you get a rosette cutting machine? Like, I can't go on Amazon and say rosette cutting machine robot, because Amazon doesn't have that. I'm like, these were all custom designed and custom built.
We are designing machines, and some machines we built ourselves. If our maintenance and engineering department is equipped enough, then we can do it. But we can do it for a simple machine, whereas just a simple electronics, PLC units, and pneumatics, simple things.
This goes so far beyond we make guitars. Now we hire engineers, we hire computer programmers, because there's a machine that sucks the guitar in, and then it gets, right after painting, it gets sanded, you know? And we're talking about tolerances of under a millimeter of how much pressure that sander puts on the guitar, because it's not rough sanding, it's sanding the paint.
Probably the one you are talking about is just exactly sending the intermediate lacquers of the finish. So that one is tough one to do. That was not the first one we have designed, because we knew that this is going to be difficult. You have just a couple of microns, maybe 10, 20 microns, which is basically 0.02 millimeters to have it precisely sanded.
And we have we have a thing this big, right? That sands, and the guitar has round parts. So I saw it going in for just a little bit of a touch of the surface, and then changing the angle. I mean, and then all this has to be completely reprogrammed for the next body shape. And for a cutaway and non-cutaway. And I mean, someone has to sit there and program the moves for each body. How long does that take?
Oh, that first one took probably months. It was maybe half a year to get it to the quality which we needed, you know. So that one first master program for sending the body, it was really just the toughest one. But then, of course, if you're repeating the same thing from let's say Grand Auditorium, or get to Grand Auditorium, it's then much easier, you know, because you already know what worked for Dreadnought, and then you just switching it to the Grand Auditorium. You have to do the adjustments, but if the first one took you 5 months, the next one could be just 2 weeks, you know, or something like that. But it's still.
But that is for someone coming and saying, "Oh, can you do me like, you know, a signature guitar because I'm this big artist?" And then you maybe you get denied for whatever reason. You have to remember, they will have to reprogram I don't know how many machines, because you wanted 2 millimeters less on some side or something, because it all means it's not just a quick adjustment or something. But we just talked about the machine that you just saw in the video that, you know, it sands, but right across from it are very nice ladies doing these things by hand. Because for every step here, there are people doing things by hand that need to be done by hand, because it needs to be experienced by hand, it needs to be controlled by hand, and then other steps are much better to be done by a machine. And I love that.
Exactly.
It's not, here's all these machines and nobody's there. I've been in a guitar factory in Germany where there's literally no one. I think there's 2 people working there just loading things, and we lose that attention to detail and that love. But the lady doing the inlays in the rosette, behind her a super technological masterpiece of machine is doing things, and also sanding the bracing and stuff like this. Nobody, you wouldn't see that. It's inside. Why in the world would you sand the bracing? You guys you'll never touch the bracing, but they'll still beautifully, there's a machine sanding the inside of the guitar. These people are a bit insane. But
I like, you know, I like the guitars when they look great on the inside as well. I know that maybe 1% or less than 1% people ever look inside, but I
actually, when you watch my video of the little Jane, which has a hole for the neck, watch it. I actually filmed the guitar inside with my probe lens, and I was very proud that I could do that. But probably nobody else sticks lenses insides of guitars. No, but I love that there's always this. Here's a machine doing its thing, but here on the other side is people doing it the way it was always done. And there's certain processes, like technically, the gluing of the bracing. Let me show you some clips of that. Technically, you could load that into a stencil or form, whatever, the actual braces, you know, clip them all in there and then put the top in and have it pressed together. You could technically do this with a machine that would be loaded. Could even be loaded by robots, who knows? But you're not, because this is something that you think absolutely needs to be done by hand.
Well, this is actually very effective and better to do it by hand. Of course, there is a lot of small parts, on the bracing, which you have to put in a right order, right positions. But that one is just, as a person, as a human being, you can actually feel if you put it right away, put a helper brace towards the main brace, you can feel that you push it just next to it. For a machine is very difficult to do, to see these small details. And one thing which is making automatization in guitar business in general very difficult is that the wood is always moving. It sucks moisture from the environment, it then get it back to the environment and so on, so it's changing its shape, it's changing its dimensions. Sometimes it's always a different, let's say, density. So some pieces less heavy, some pieces more heavy. One sucks the glue a little bit more deeper, so one doesn't, and so on. So these are the challenges which we are facing using the wood. But why we are using wood? It's still the most, let's say, best performing acoustic material in the world.
But the human factor right at that stage means the woman doing that, she could react to it.
Exactly.
And let me explain this process that I saw. It was brilliant. So you want the bracing inside, right? And I saw she put a black kind of hexagon in the rosette, which kind of gave her the right angles for the beginning. And then I said to Martin, well, what about these other little flat pieces of wood? They came out later because they were just distance pieces of guides for the smaller braces. But she could absolutely react to something, and if she felt, okay, no, this brace that was cut somewhere isn't the right thing and it doesn't bend right, whatever, she can, put it to the side. At the end, I saw her wiping off the glue because, each piece of wood, as you said, might take the glue differently.
Yeah.
And what I loved about that, not machine, but about that workplace is she positions it all, she glues it down, has distance pieces, so everything will remain during the gluing process in the right position. And then she folded over like a diaphragm kind of rubbery thing, and everything got sucked down, so it gets pressured onto the top. And that was the brilliant thing. No, she doesn't move on to the next workstation because space. She flips it because the whole thing is a big wheel with 4 of these workstations on one flippity doodah machine in green. That rhymes. And then she does the whole thing again. And when she comes back to the first one, it's dried. We asked 15 minutes. And then she removes the distance pieces and voila, there's your bracing. Did you get that workstation flippity doodah machine off of Amazon?
No.
Was it eBay? Or where do you get a bracing flippity doodah sucky innie machine?
Well, yeah, we have to build it as most of the machines which you see over here. So we have to invent it, build it, and that's.
Is that something you can tell me? Nobody's watching. Is that something that other guitar factories also have?
I don't know. I believe they have. But I actually started to gain my inspiration for these kind of like tools and improvements and what we could do differently and so on. I actually started to look into different businesses than guitars.
Okay.
Probably most advanced with the product, believe it or not, actually is pretty similar to the guitar. It's complicated, big, and so on. It's automotive, and it's very far with automatization. So I look into automotive.
Not a lot of wood in automotive. I would say almost zero wood in automotive.
That's right.
Almost.
That's right. That's right. But imagine, have a look at the car. It's bigger than the guitar. Yeah, multiple times. That's okay. But it's complicated. A lot of things had to fit together somehow. You don't have to measure humidity, I guess, in automotive factory like we do. But you have to you have to put it together in certain steps. You have to do the right finish on the car, same as on the guitar. Watch for little dents and mistakes which can happen in the production. It takes probably the production. Well, I can tell you the production of guitar takes longer than a car. car takes about 3 days. Even like more expensive cars it take 3 days plus to put it all together. For guitars these days we are at about like a 21 days, 22
Well,
days.
you need more
in production.
in a car. I mean, I guess there's things glued, but not with
Not much.
not
Lot
with the
of
same.
joints which are just tightened together,
Yeah.
welded together
But,
fast.
yeah. I'm just amazed by the ingenuity. I'd love to now. I'm really curious to see that same process with Taylor and Martin and some other acoustic companies. I'd like to know how they do the bracing. If they have a sucky anything, a turny flippy thing, or how they do that. Maybe because of the space issue, they don't have to have the flippy thing. They just move on to.
You don't necessarily have to have it. We do our Tetris kind of approach, so we have to have it.
It was a small room you needed to find a solution. Brilliant, really brilliant. I mean, I tip my hat to whoever came up with that. Who came up with that?
I think this is from my father's times, but I remember we were doing it like a really old-fashioned way. Even I was here when we were doing it the old-fashioned way, like that. You have this like one platform on the bottom where you put your braces, the board and everything, and then you connected to it is the like a sort of like a ceiling platform, and you are pushing in sort of like a sticks, which by just pushing it in. It is basically creating the pressure from the top to the
yeah.
The problem with that system, and that I think it's still in use in some of the workshops maybe, but the problem there is that you have just the points where you are pressing.
And with the suction process, it's very
useful. The vacuum pressing is much more like let's say the distribution of the pressure is very smooth all around the top, all around the braces, and that makes some better quality joint there.
Let's stay with the bracing for a second. We're going to talk about, of course, specific things about Furch guitars. Country isn't easy, and the name isn't easy, but we're gonna nail it. Nothing nailed on those guitars, by the way. Don't put words in my mouth. Is there anything specific about the bracing? Because of course everyone's got their own idea about bracing.
Well, the bracing we are using X bracing, which is the fundamental concept is the X bracing. So this been around for 100 years, maybe already. Even if we try to bring some new concept, which we always trying to look at the bracing from different perspective, still the X bracing, if you want to use wood for bracing, which well basically has its limits in terms of how you can mold it and form it and shape it, still the best concept out there because it's very difficult to explain. It's very nice concept to avoid certain like resonance patterns on the top, which can I get technical?
Hey,
sorry, I don't know how to explain it.
Get technical.
I'm sorry, I cannot explain. So imagine a top board. Let's say it's in front of us over here. So how we design a bracing? How do we decide where to put each brace and in that body shape? First, we start to measure where the wavelength of various frequencies are actually fit inside of the top. So you have like low frequencies, high frequencies, and if you expose this top board to that frequency, it will somehow tries to find its way in, tries to fit somewhere. That size of the wavelength would fit somehow into the probably in the biggest part of the body, just in front of the bridge. So the basic part would be resonating somewhere in where the bridge is. High frequencies, they would just find their way probably on multiple places all around the top, and we have to find out where they are. There is a cool method for that actually. You just basically expose the guitar to the generated sound of certain frequency, and you put some let's say very like a dust kind of material on it.
We've all seen those patterns that.
That's right. Claudi's picture. So that's when we're doing that, we see where there is a frequency and where there is no frequency basically resonating necessarily. And so we know where ideally should the braces go and where it should not go.
So the braces would go where it's not resonating.
Where it's not resonating.
Because otherwise it would interfere with the resonance right there.
Yeah. It would basically just mute it. You would have less volume in that area where you have the bracing.
So the areas where the top is resonant and vibrating, the braces are really just there to make it stronger. So you don't want to mute. You don't want to mute those parts, because then you're making the wood stronger, but you're also making it resonate less.
Yeah, exactly.
But that will be relevant for that one piece of wood.
The different pieces of wood have like a slightly different wavelength, because with the density of the wood and other factors, you can have like a little bit longer wavelength or the same frequency, or a little shorter in different wood. But the difference is actually not that big.
Really? Even like the same size, the same top, same shape, but different woods, or even the same piece of wood, the same type of wood. So let's say Sitka, same top. I would say that the same size of that slab of wood will be different, because wood is not uniform, right?
Yeah. But in that particular factor, it's not that actually not that important. That doesn't change so much. What is more important actually is the shape of the guitar.
Okay.
Because if you have like a 5% longer or 5% shorter wavelength, it will fit there pretty much the same way. You know, if it is shaped like Dreadnought or OM, then it will definitely fit somehow differently.
Okay. So then obviously the bracing for different shapes will be different. You're not just going to make it bigger and smaller.
We make a different braces for different shapes. So that's what we found out, that okay, this is needed to do it. We have to do it this way, because otherwise we have very different performance of the.
But what you find with the resonance, let's say on a Koa top versus a Sitka top, same thickness, same size, is very similar. So the density of the wood is not as relevant?
Not as relevant for the bracing pattern, because the wavelength stays not different enough to make a different bracing pattern. But what we do differently is not really the bracing, but the voicing. Because voicing is
he's cleverly getting to your part, Mark.
Oh yeah.
He's getting to it. We're talking about it. Hold your horses. I'm leading him there. It's my job.
That's right. But since we started to talk about it, actually,
we're slowly. It's going to take us a while, but I want to talk about these things. So yeah, you're doing something to the tops, I heard. And then I heard that we can't really talk about it too much, and Martin doesn't really know, and it's a secret, and it's in some cellar somewhere where we're not even allowed, and I don't know what's happening. But tell us as much as you can tell us.
Well, basically, that's where the material itself and influence on the sound comes in, and what we really have to handle individually for tops is basically like measuring certain physical properties. Basically, do a different thickness or individual thickness for each top. And it has to really be for each top. It must be like a just single piece. We measure on that one single piece of top, and we do adjustment, changing the thickness in the different areas actually of that body. And by that we can get to the performance. Let me put it, maybe show you like this. Okay, if we just say that Sitka spruce would be thickness 3.1 millimeter. If it would be just like that, making guitars with that specification, and that's it. This 3.1 millimeters thickness for all Sitka spruce tops. Probably the difference in the sound would be maybe that big, piece to piece, While when we are doing the voicing process, so measuring the physical properties, taking the like a thickness down in the various locations around the top, we can narrow it down to this kind of like a tolerance, and that's that's what we like about it. That's why it's also important, because difference between that and that can be really like quite a different guitar.
It's like sometimes you get a great guitar from a brand, sometimes we get one that's, just shit. But this way, you can say that's the Furch sound. That's like we can guarantee that within this amount of tolerances instead of this, this is what the wood naturally would do. But you can guide it to have a certain resonant property by controlling the thickness of the top in certain areas, which is all handled in a room that we're not allowed in because secret sauce. But you know what? Some companies need to keep their secret sauce, which is totally fine. And then
that's the definitely secret I want to keep. But this is so essential that it's done on every Furch. Even Violet series have this.
That would have been my next question. Like, is it really on every?
Yeah. It has to be. For a Red series, Rainbow series, we doing it on the back side as well, backboard.
Okay.
But it has to be on every guitar. Every single Furch will actually have this even in the future. I can promise you that. It's so important.
Wow. Okay. So that's definitely attention to detail. Let's see what Martin, he just came back, by the way. What Martin has for us. We talked about that soundboard. We just talked about it, Martin. Why is he giving me the stink eye? We just talked about it. Shut your trap. Resonance enhancing finish. I read fish, but it's not fish. They don't have resonance enhancing fish here. That would be weird. Here's your mackerel together with your guitar. No, we're not doing this. So finish. Obviously, people discuss guitar finishes to death. The only thing I say when I walked in here, it's all kind of brownish yellow. Where are the colors? But you don't do that with acoustics for some reason. Blue guitar sounds better than a not blue guitar. You know that, right? Tone color is a real thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, it would change the sound, that's for sure.
If you go on Instagram and on Facebook and you put in #tone color,
okay,
you will see a whole bunch of posts about it. I mean, primarily because they are from me. But the point is, it's a trending topic. Tone color it's a thing that we have to talk about in the future, that blue guitars sound better than Sunburst, for example. It's a thing.
Okay.
So maybe you should look into, blue. That's all I'm saying. Maybe purple. Purple is also a good tone color. Finish. That's all we got there. Yes. Martin's going to strangle me. He's got his hands like this. Finish. Everyone's like, it's got to be nitro. And then the PRS guitars have the, 20 centimeter polyurethane, whatever. So with an electric, people saying, who cares? Obviously, things need to resonate with an acoustic. With an electric, just the same. It needs to resonate. Stop being stupid about it. You offer, I saw on that guitar over there, 4 different... Can someone hand me that guitar over there? 4 different painty jobs. So which is the one we're supposed to talk about? Resonance enhancing finish. Are they all resonance enhancing?
Well, all of them have at least a little part of that resonance enhancing finish. So, resonance enhancing finish is the finish which we have developed, a couple years ago, many years ago. 2016 I was working on it. So resonance enhancing finish is the finish basically which is designed to work basically for the acoustic performance, because there are majority of like a wooden kind of like a surface treatments, they are working rather against it because they are too soft. Simply put it this way,
soft will stop resonance.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that this is soft up to the point where you just can somehow like dent it very easily, scratch it or so. But even the materials which you are used to on your chair or your table, they are still too soft for having a good acoustic performance. Okay. That's what we found out actually in a long time ago in a like early research time. So I was looking for material which would be very hard and still would be applicable for on a acoustic guitar.
We have to throw this in. Leslie is also still looking for material that's very hard. I had to say it. I'm sorry, people. It was necessary. You were waiting for it. You would have hated me if I hadn't said it. Okay, penis joke done. Moving on.
So I found the material.
Didn't even phase him. He's just right back. It's this guy is amazing. Okay, sorry. Move on. Yes.
Basically, what what's a great composition of the material or for having like a really very hard material is UV finish. If it is like 100% UV lacquer, there are many options these days on the market, and it gets a little bit like let's say distorted this whole field of UV finish. But the essential 100% UV finish basically. What happens there is that polymerization, so the hardening of the material, is happening not just naturally, but by drying away some material from the wood, from the lacquer, but shining the UV light, which has an energy, big amount of energy in it actually when you're shining on the on this material, and it activates basically it initiates the process of polymerization, so that the molecules will basically starts to kind of like join together. And since this is happening with help extra energy, and it's happening quite fast actually, in a couple of seconds it can happen, then the density of the molecular structure gets very, very tight, much tighter than if you have a lacquer which is just naturally curing by taking the solvents out.
The UV lacquer is definitely, as far as I know from the other factory that I've seen, ultra thin, way thinner than normal paint.
Can be, doesn't have to be, but can be.
And extremely hard.
Yeah.
I know that. So are all these options that treatment? Okay, because we have here, if you guys can see this, we got a full pour satin finish, which just feels like freaking wood to me. We got a full pour vintage hand brushed finish. That's a lot of words to write on the website. Which this feels like wood. This feels like it's painted, but it looks like wood. This is super nice high gloss, which we probably want for my Rainbow series because it's gonna have some kind of porno wood, so we might want that. And then we've got open pour, which is back to feels like wood to me, but
they all have a part of this like a resonance enhancing UV finish. So basically, just two finishes where we start to break it down. Open pour, it's over here. Open pour, by the definition, it's with open pores, and it feels very natural. You can basically feel it with your finger. You can feel there are like pores of the woods open. So especially mahogany, African mahogany has like a deep pores, and you can really see that and feel
smoother than this. I mean, we're talking about with imagination, but I mean, it's a very subtle difference.
Yes. So open pour, full pour. That's the basic breakdown. Then the open pour we cannot do in high gloss. If you would polish it, you would just hate it. It would just look rubbish. So that comes only with satin finish, which you notice. So that kind of like a satin.
I mean, obviously, because if it's open pour and there's still pores, how would you high gloss? And that just it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, because in Martin's list it very much this resonance enhancing finish. So I mean, do this. Otherwise, we got audio issues. Oh, look in the back too. They got the finishes in the back. So is it just not hindering resonance, like you said with other finishes? That are too soft and they're kind of slowing it down? Or is it actually, as Martin claims in his notes, enhancing? Is it actually making resonance better because it's adding a layer of hardened lacquer to the guitar?
Well, that's a good question actually, because
if I had a non-painted top, nothing on it, and I take the same top, which of course I can't, and then do your enhancing finish, would it then resonate better? Because otherwise the word enhancing is bull hockey.
Yeah. I did ask myself that question at the beginning, and only way to find out, you just try to make it, the same guitar with that finish, without finish, and then just proceed with finishing. It doesn't guitar. If you just wood exposed, it just for some reasons doesn't work. It doesn't play very well. I guess that's my guess. It's just because the surface is not, let's say, clean enough, I would say. It's not hard enough, not flat enough, maybe to effectively vibrate the molecules of the air, because that's how you get the sound of the guitar to your ear. It's through molecules of the air. And I suppose that's just my assumption. Is that basically the surface of the wood with its little dust over it and a little sort of like a satin-ish brushy surface is just that it at the same time muting the some of the frequencies. I think so.
If you have this UV finish and it adds a very thin but very hard layer to something that's already resonating beautifully in certain things, what you want to do with the guitar is you don't want to stop vibration. So the string is vibrating, and anything that is anywhere soft or has a vibration counter or 180 degrees to the waveform is going to stop it. So what you want to do is you want to have hardness. Technically, stone guitars would be a great idea, but it's just not very practical.
It's not very practical. I have seen marble guitar, and I played marble guitar. Yeah, it's not practical, but it's also, it's very heavy, very fragile, and the sound is kind of there, but it's a different sound than we would expect.
And that's the other thing. We want the rigidity and the hardness for sustain and stopping and not stopping the string vibrating, but then it also has to sound good. So the tone, meaning the frequency response, is on one hand, but then how long does the tone ring is the other thing. And the hardness is how long does the tone ring. So that's what they're doing with their UV finish, and you've seen hopefully clips by now of the paint shop and people sanding by hand. They sent me into a cage with a buffing machine and said, technically this isn't legal and you might die, but
we were watching you,
so I was apparently they could have pulled me out had the machine eaten me up. But for you guys, I got the machine, the clips of this ridiculously big robot with big scary spinning wheels buffing guitars.
Actually, maybe one thing actually to support the idea about the finish, and specifically UV finish, why it's working. It's still coming down to this like a tight molecular structure, but what the UV finish does is that it's increasing the tension into the top board, whatever material you put it on, it's actually increasing the tension. So if I would spray you just one flat board without any support, without any braces, spray it for you, and then have it cured in a box, then it would go like this. That's a tension which it's actually helping in the soundboard. In our production method, we also put this tension inside of into when we are gluing the tops and gluing the backs. We are also working, and actually when we are gluing the bracing as well, we are on purpose putting some preloads and tension
because the paint is going to do counter tension.
No, it's not about the counter tension. It's just that if there is the tension, it's actually better for the sound of the guitar. It will react better. If the top of the guitar or back of the guitar is actually just sort of like a free to move, then it will not resonate in multiple frequencies. Probably just you would lose maybe 30% of the performance. If you put there a little pressure, it actually doesn't matter so much if it's from the front side, back side, but if it is all over the top board, and the backboard is just helping much better, and we actually make our bodies, I would say, even quite a bit more complicated way than it necessarily would have to be, just in order to put some tension and some a really calculated, or let's say really a necessary tension inside of the top and back.
But let me ask you this: if the paint from the outside does add tension that you have to kind of counter, and that the hardness on the top board, let's stay here for a second, that the hardness of the paint does add to the resonance, which we haven't covered yet, that it actually adds. But let's say, because they're claiming it's enhancing, let's say it adds. The guitars are only painted from the outside. Have you tried painting the braced part of the top before it goes on the guitar with the same UV finish and see what that does?
Yes.
Did it do anything?
No. Nothing which I was also myself, I was expecting like okay, should be a good result there if we do completely like a top and back,
But if it adds hardness from the inside and kind of all makes it, and it would even more combine everything, like the bracing and the top from, glue it together kind of with the UV paint, didn't do anything?
No, it didn't do enough to you can hear some difference, but it's just not what it. I didn't like the result.
I don't
know why. I don't know what happens there. Actually, it probably comes down to how the resonator works. I'm not sure about that, but it didn't perform as well as I would expect.
I am now even more impressed by this man. The fact that he actually did try that. That means they literally are trying anything to make these guitars better. Let's go to the neck thing, which is called, I know this by heart, something about the CNR system.
So what was the name you said?
I know this by heart. It's the probably patented, it has an R behind it for registered something, CNR system, which stands for, wait, let me get this, C for neck, no, C for guitar, no, C for heel.
Czechia.
Frank,
Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic, neck retention, neck rigidity, neck piece of metal. I don't know.
Composite neck reinforcement. So CNR, composite neck reinforcement. So this is actually a system which is in all our let's see where the focus is.
Here's the focus. Look, this thing will focus like crazy. If we have to cover our eyes. Cover your eyes. See? And now no, you can't see, but now it's really in focus.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It works.
This is how this thing works. Now we got to go back to your eyes and.
Okay.
I'll film it and I'll put shots in it because I'm a professional.
Super. So, CNR, composite neck reinforcement. That's basically truss rod system which we fit in all our guitars except Little Jane because it doesn't have a heel and everything. But
that's true.
Let's just simply.
We're gonna get to the Little Jane in this video, by the way, because I have to test that man on something. But that's also violet.
Is violet as well, yeah. It's also one of the essential features which we put in our guitar. So, let me just start with explaining what happens on the guitar and why there is a truss rod in the neck. On an acoustic guitar, you are used to have like an adjustable truss rod, right? So the truss rod is basically just holding against the string tension. And basically, by adjusting the truss rod, it means that you are pushing this part up or down, and that will give you that gives you like a certain like a neck relief. So let's say like a bow-ish shape of the neck. It's there because when you're playing the hard technique, then you basically want to have like a bigger bow effect in order to be able to achieve like a string action which will be somehow like a comfortable for your playing. But if you are having like a very soft technique, then you could straighten the neck almost, have a very low string action, and therefore improve comfort of playing and speed of playing and so on. So this is about adjustable truss rod, and it's in all acoustic guitars with steel string guitars. At least it should be there. You should play with it. Actually, you should adjust it to your playing style. So that's a standard. We had a problem, or generally the problem on acoustic guitars is that. When you fit in just like a standard truss rod, which is basically just a metal screw, which is just along the whole neck, and you start to turn with the screw. It will apply its tension on the basically beginning, visible, yeah, beginning and the end of the neck. So it starts to push here and here. But what happens later on with all of this area, just between those 2 points, you have no control over that. You just basically relying on how the wood is somehow shaped, what kind of preloads are inside of the wood, because there are naturally some preloads, and so you then can experience things like some humps. You can experience twists. And that's something you don't want to have on a fingerboard, because fingerboard, actually the precision, the production precision on the fingerboards that's the toughest part. We are going up to 0.02 millimeters precision here, and this is for a wood is very, very tough. You want to have your fingerboard to be precise and predictable and adjustable. Back to the 2 points problem, you don't have control over what's happening over here in between those 2 points. So we are thinking how to gain some control in this area, and that's why we have fitted the neck with a carbon pipe, which is we have actually fitted the truss rod into the carbon pipe, which is going all along the fingerboard just to the headstock. And now what happens? We started to turn the truss rod. It applies its tension to beginning and at the end of the carbon pipe. And the carbon pipe is extremely rigid. It's a carbon, so it's very, very rigid. And it's bending very smoothly. And it's bending very smoothly all along the neck. It's so rigid that it can force the neck to behave as carbon pipe wants, not the wood to behave as it wants with all its tensions, but let's say force the wood to behave as carbon wants. Not 100%, of course. There's always have to be like an exchange of power, an exchange of this tension. But carbon pipe is very strong and sort of like making the wood to behave. I would put it this way. And so then we have much more control over this whole area with this system using the carbon. And then another thing which we have added into our CNR system at the early stage of development was that this kind of like an angular cast piece, which is basically holding the angle of the heel. You have to imagine the string tension of the standard 6-string guitar. It's about 72 kilograms of the tension. Imagine what happens when you have this like a joint of the body. What it's happening that you have like it is like a collapse kind of force towards the guitar body. So we have like a system of braces here in this area. We have this cast element, which is basically much more rigid than the wooden block inside. Therefore, we have actually reduced the size of the wooden block inside, because the rigidity element or structural element is outside of the guitar body. Here we have a smaller piece of the block. We can let this area of the body resonate, because in the traditional construction you have big block over here, but which is muting this area. In our construction, this area is still active, is this area of the body. So we are using the much bigger potential of the top board at the same time. So these things together make a CNR system functional and actually so essential. So we fit it in all guitars, even Violet series. So there are 3 things, if I sum it up, actually, for you as a player.
Let's see if you remember the 3 things.
You got it there? Okay.
Checking you.
I don't know. Okay, so let's try the first thing. So basically, you are able to adjust your basically setup in much more precisely, with bigger precision than in just using the standard truss rod. Because you have just much more control over the neck relief. So that's one thing, precision of adjustment. Second thing is that when you find your perfect setup, and you will just get to your perfect setup with this kind of like a solid system, it will stay there much longer. You know, you don't need to readjust every winter or something like that. You just it holds there much longer. And third thing which I like to say that you are gaining as a player is that you are really using the performance of the body, even the area where
because you have a much smaller piece of wood inside. No, don't go there. It's true. There is a much smaller piece of wood inside the guitar, because otherwise, you need this big block for this whole 72 kilos of. That's a lot.
That's a standard 12 gauge set.
Okay. And so you are putting a piece of metal in and make the wood actually smaller because you don't need that much material, which means that in the guitar there's more. Well, it's freer to resonate, which is always when I look for an acoustic guitar that I want for a studio, where I don't need it for live performance, where I don't need a pickup system. I always say, please, no pickup, because that pickup in the side is something that sits in there. It's a piece of plastic. It's something that weighs it down. And it is something that will make the guitar resonate slightly worse than it would without a pickup. So the Rainbow series we're going to spec out, even though it's going to be a very, very, very high-end guitar, where you would wish you'd had a pickup inside, but for it to be the perfect guitar, I opt for no pickup system, because it means, you're cutting out a piece of wood and you're putting this thing inside, and there's something sitting there probably, It does affect it. I've tried similar guitars in shops with and without the pickup, and they resonate better when there's no pickup. Just like, if you don't need the cutaway, then don't order a guitar with a cutaway, because
it's what it is. Yes.
There's just more body. And do you really need the axis up? Do you really play up there? Ask yourself. It's just my feeling, but if you want a guitar for sound, no cutaway, no pickup, put a mic in front of it, you're going to have, I think, the better sounding guitar.
On the other hand, if you need it, if you're going into these areas, and
then you need a cutaway.
Well, absolutely. That's in that case, I would say, well, go for it, because it's the sound is compromised, but just a little, And
yes, just when you're talking about the perfect guitar, you don't want any compromise.
Exactly.
But for example, I just got a brilliant guitar from this company in Frank, and it's the Dark Yellow series. I did get that with a cutaway and a pickup, because sometimes I need an acoustic guitar and I have to play on a stage, and you want to plug it in for that reason. Or I might want to demo a pedal, an EQ pedal or something with an acoustic, for which reason you have to have a pickup. And sometimes you need the cutaway. So the best idea is you buy a Furch with a cutaway and a pickup, but then you also buy another one, without. And then you also buy a little Jane, so you can travel with it. See what I'm trying? I'm trying to make you money.
Yeah, actually, baritone would be a great option as well.
Oh, but you also need a baritone and you need a troll. He's a much better salesman than I am.
And GN, actually. Have you tried our GN, Grand Nylon series? So that one which is actually designed for a steel string guitar players, but it's got
with nylon. No, I have no
classical size or sound, and that would be probably a nice addition.
Yeah, but you see, if I'm a I'm gonna be an ass now. You see, if I'm an electric player or someone and I'm playing like a steel string, I usually go for Ortega guitars. Yeah, I don't know. These are probably more high end than the Ortegas are, but they all both make nice things. But that's always their thing. They say, well, we don't make guitars for the classical player. We make guitars for the electric player that wants to have an affordable nylon with a piezo and all that. I want to know one thing from the man himself. I'll be right back. You might or might not have seen my Little Jane video where I compared endlessly 5 of these with different woods. I'm going to say this is the Cocobolo version, right?
Yeah.
That's the one that costs you an arm and a leg. And so in that video, and in the product shots, in this whole thing that I had to do, I had to open this piece that releases the neck, because you can take the neck off many, many times. And at some point, I hated the damn thing because when you do this over and over, I must have done it wrong because ouchie, my fingy hurt. Apparently, there's a way to do this, Martin said, that is not what I did, but that's more efficient. How do you open this? Can you show this to us?
I don't know how you did it, but I'm using it, and I actually had a little Jane. Well, I just put my finger over here, very simply.
That looked much easier than what I did. I tried to push it.
Then I'm still holding. I actually still grabbing the guitar with basically whole palm and our whole hand. Then I just unhook the.
Yeah.
Still holding it. Still. I have still control over whole body. What's happening over here? Just unhook this. Hook.
Yeah.
And
take the neck off.
And
put it back together because I want to see a professional do this. I've done it a million times and I always fall.
And yeah, it's just same process, but from the back to the beginning. So I still holding the neck like this. My finger is in underneath the strings at this point,
which I've done several times, and that's a bad idea because once you start tightening it, your finger gets caught.
Yeah,
yeah.
Then because there's another step, to it, yeah, which maybe you didn't do. But anyway, so that's my thing. I've set up for myself and works for me. So yeah, holding it like this. Now I just make sure that I hook
it in,
and when I have the hook actually in the position, then it's just like that,
and it's there. And you just went like this. Let me try this.
Yeah, go on.
You went like this. You see, that's not fair because the ones I had a lot more tension.
No, not possible.
There's no, because this is easy. This. Wait, did I? No. I've spent a lot of days on this video.
Okay.
For 5 of them, and none of them were this easy to open.
I don't know how it could happen.
I'm telling you, I've hurt myself several times. This I'm not afraid of. This is easy. Does it have a different? No, there isn't a spring. There is no spring.
No. There is no spring.
The strings are the spring.
I don't know for how long we have this guitar here, but
that is weird.
Truth is that when it's new, we on purpose have a tighter joint and everything because if in the first let's say 100 times of opening it gets, let's say, softer, and so we automatically too loose. Yeah,
it's super simple. I was fighting with it because I had to do it a lot, in the video and showing it. So it wasn't me. I had just one that was a little bit tighter. Can you grab this guitar for me, please? So, have we left anything out about the specialties of the guitars? By now, you've seen a billion things and shots from the factory and production process, which should all be very impressive, either because it's an impressive production process or because they're impressive shots made by me, very sexy shots with blurriness and shit like this. I'm trying to be artsy here and earn a living. But based on this, we've done everything except talk about my Rainbow series, which we shall do in a separate video, which we will film right after this one. But unless you can think of something, I am satisfied.
If you're satisfied, then I'm satisfied.
I shall remain a few days here. I don't know what we're doing. People coming, party time, excellent food, all that stuff. Apparently there's a factory tour on Friday. I will not participate in that because I'm spending all day in the factory filming it. I'm making my own factory tour for you guys. So if you have a chance, wherever you are in the world, to go to a place that has Furch guitars from the beautiful country of Frank, then you should absolutely try them. I have a dark yellow at home, which is mine, and it's nice. I am taking my little Jane with me. They built me one right here, so I have a foldable guitar. Now I know even how to put it together. And we'll talk about just a fun, spec it any way I wanted project. We're not going to go nuts, but that's a separate video, which you shall see on this channel at a time when that video is out. Thanks to the man himself, who knows a shit ton about this stuff. I'm always impressed when people running companies actually know what the fuck they're talking about.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because sometimes, that doesn't happen. Sometimes people are thrust into positions and they don't really know what they're doing.
I think, and I have a tendency to tell to people that we are more like an engineers company. So
I can tell that, yeah.
I think you can recognize it because, well, it's we will always will be about the production and engineering and designing of guitars. It's not gonna happen then that we would be just become marketing company, let's say. It's not gonna happen.
No, you need to be passionate about it. I really love to look in people's faces around here. Everyone really was it could be because Mr. Cameraman was around. For example, I'm thinking that maybe everyone today was wearing a Furch t-shirt. I'm thinking that's not normal. I'm thinking people were told, wait, we're doing a factory tour, dress accordingly. I don't know, but my hunch is that not every day everyone in the factory is wearing a black shirt with a name on it, is it?
It's actually, there is, the story is that we were just starting the new collection of Furch merchandise, and we, of course, our employees got first batch free, so they are using it. That's the story.
Okay, good. I always question myself when I show up with a camera, like, what is normal and what isn't? But no, it really, I really enjoyed meeting all these craftsmen. Thank you for this video. We'll shoot the next one right away. And as always, I'll put links below to shops that carry these and animals at the end.
Greetings from Frank.